Monday night. It is, isn't it?
Yes.
So unfortunately, that means there's no share next week because I'm at a wedding out of town. Sorry, and then the week after is Purim. So we're not. So that unfortunately, no share the next 2 weeks.
The week after Tuesday night.
Monday night.
Oh yeah.
Unless you're in Jerusalem. You're already Purim party.
The
right night.
You know.
Okay.
It's in Jerusalem.
Fine.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. So right. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, that we got up to Lamed Hay, the end of Lamed Hay with base. Is that right? Yeah. So we're up to the new sugya, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines up from the bottom of Lamed Hay with base, and we basically come to a very interesting question of what happens if it's a setup where you cannot object because you're scared. In other words, chazaka, as we know, is based on the fundamental premise that after 3 years, if you owned it, if the owner was really telling the truth, he should have made a machal. He should have objected, he should have said something, he should have protested. The fact that he didn't, that shows that he's actually admits to your ownership of the land, right? Yeah, and that's your strong. That's the proof that you own the land. That you're telling the truth. Remember that. That's the. So the problem is there are some people where you're scared to object. You just because they're just.
Owners are scared. They're very violent.
No, they just might cause you a problem if you object, right? I mean. So you couldn't object because you were just scared, and therefore it shouldn't be a proof of ownership. Because I didn't object, why did you beat me up?
It's a good reason not to object.
Right, and therefore that destroys the chazaka, that disturbs the chazaka. And the classic example, that
could be true of anything to do with base debt. So you could say, well, he didn't come forward with the aiders because he was scared.
No, I think that's a fair point. That's a fair point. But the difference here is the difference here is that this whole process does not take place in base debt. Anywhere. It takes place anywhere. Just you have to get up in front of Aiden and you have to make an objection. Problem is you're scared for your life.
Don't call you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know they're going to hear about it. That's the whole point. The point is they're supposed to hear. That's the whole idea. The whole point is they're going to hear and they're going to beat you up. They're not going to let you survive. And the example the Gemora gives where that is the case is an akum. Akum is translated as as we know, it's an abbreviation of Chav Mazola. Certainly in those days, there's a whole discussion about how this would apply in contemporary times. But in the context of a goy in the Gemara, they were assumed to be Gazlanim, the pagans, certainly. Akum, yeah, fascinating theory about whether or not all these type of things apply in more contemporary circumstances. But that's not the shift tonight. The Akum was assumed to be Gazlanim. Now that means, that means that you're afraid to object because they're gonna basically beat you up. And therefore, Rav Yudah Marav says, Yisrael habom machmasakum. If Yisrael comes along and claims that, and not that the goy sold it to him, hareu ka'akum, he's got the same status as the goy. Ma'akum eno chazaka, just like the akum has no chazaka ela b'shtar. An akum can only have chazaka with shtar. Chazal did not institute the whole takana of cheskes gimel shonim with a goy, right? Af Yisrael bo machmasakum eno chazaka ela b'shtar. So Yisrael who comes machmasakum also through an akum. He says I bought it from the goy. He doesn't. Who the goy says he bought it from Yisrael, and the Yisrael says he bought it from the goy. Eno chazaka ela b'shtar. He only has a chazaka with a shtar. So what's going on here is that like this. You have a goy. He has the field. Well, he bought the field. The Jew bought the field from Yisrael, and he says, and he claims chazaka, whatever. And he says he's been there 3 years, right? That doesn't give him ownership. Someone else then comes along, Yisrael, and says that he bought it from this guy, and he says he's also got 3 years chazaka. So they've each had 3 years chazaka. None of it works because you're no stronger than the person you bought it from, and the person you bought it from can't establish chazaka because there's no chazaka for goyim except with a shtar.
Surprising because he's going to the Yid. So
right.
I think it lies, it reverts back to chazaka by the Yid.
No, because his whole strength is only Yeah, and that's what the Rasham is going to deal with this long Rashbam at the end of the Omid, because there could be potentially scenarios where the Yisrael should be able to stand on his own two legs, so to speak, right? Rather than coming because of the Akum, right? Let's just see a few more lines of the Gemara, and then we'll see the Rashbam. Omar Rava says, the Omar Yisrael, if the Yisrael says, Lididi Omar li Akum, Diminoch Zovna, if the Yisrael says that the Akum said to me, the Goy said to me, Diminoch Zavna, he bought it from you, Mehemon is believed. Right? So if the Goy says, if the Yisrael says that the Goy told me that he bought it from you, then he's believed. The Gemara asks, how can that be? Mi ikomidi, is there anything, Dilo Ama Akum le Mehemon, that if the Goy says something he's not believed, right? Dilo Ama Yisrael Mishmei the Akum Mehemon. And if the Yisrael says something in the name of the Akum, the name of the Goy is believed. Right? So it doesn't make any sense. Right? It makes no sense. How can you have, in other words, you have a situation where the Akum says, that the Goy says, that the Goy says something he's not going to be believed, right? And Yisrael says, Mishmei the Akum, in the name of the Goy, so therefore he's believed. It doesn't make any sense. He's no stronger than the Goy. No stronger than the, right? He's not going to be in a better position. Makes sense? Right? Why should he be in a better position than the Goy, right? So in other words, let's just recap, right? What we're saying is as follows. We're saying that the fundamental premise of the sugya, we'll see in Rashbam how this works in detail, right? Is the chazaka does not apply to a non-Jew. It was only something which is relevant to a Yisrael. Someone who comes along and therefore says that he bought it from a guy who's claimed the chazaka, who bought it from Yisrael. He hasn't got any. He's no stronger than the guy. But he doesn't have chazaka either. Even if he's been there 3 years. Right? You understand? Because he hasn't got any. He's got nothing to stand on beyond the person he bought it from. You don't like that, Paul? Yeah, of course you can. Well, bottom of Lamed Hayam and base. Top of that bubble.
I do English, you can't have a better title than one.
Yes.
Never that would not have it. You can't give something better.
Latin. Oh, the Latin. What does that mean? I like that.
No person can give what non-habet what they don't have. You can't give what you don't have.
Teach them.
It's a similar idea, but see, the thing is, it's not a title issue. It's a procedural issue rather than a title issue. The procedural issue, you're allowed to say, "I've been here for 3 years."
Yes.
Not really. That's not your title. That's your procedural way of establishing your title. That's why I'm struggling slightly. Do you see what I mean? It's a slightly different.
No, because the procedure has to be correct, and the procedure with chazaka is a chazaka sheyeshim otaina. You need 2 elements for a chazaka to be valid. I need to be there for 3 years. That's chazaka, and I have to have a valid claim. I have to have something that works, that stands up in court, and it will not stand up in court to say I bought it from a Gentile. That it doesn't work.
Oh, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, sorry, let me rephrase that. Because the scenario is let's make it slightly simpler. We know the facts that there was a guy who had a field that he bought from a Yisrael. Okay. We don't know he bought it from Israel. We know there was a field that belonged to Israel. It belonged to Ruvain. And then Humphrey got the field, and he was in the field for 3 years. And he claims to have bought it from the Israel. And we don't believe him. Why? Because Humphrey is not Jewish, and therefore he can't establish chazaka. Okay? Right?
He's got to start. No, you haven't started.
No, he has to start. All bets are off. Okay. Right. Yeah. No, sir. Right. That's it. Okay. Now, and these facts are known and clear. No one disputes them. We know it used to belong to Ruvain. We know Humphrey's been there for 3 years, and we know we're not going to believe Humphrey. Now, comes along Shimon. Okay. Comes along Shimon, and Shimon says, "I bought it. I bought it from Humphrey." Now he's there 3 years. Shimon's also there for 3 years. Chazaka, Cheskes Gimel Shanim, Chazaka 3 years. And he's got a taina. He says he bought it from Humphrey. The answer is that doesn't work. Because he is a Yisrael Bo Machmas Akum. And therefore he's no stronger than the Akum. He's no stronger than the Goy. The Goy doesn't have Chazaka, and he also doesn't have Chazaka.
Is his title dependent on him having bought it from the Goy, or just having been there for 3 years?
Being somewhere for 3 years does not give you ownership. That is the fundamental principle that we are learning through this Gemora and many others, right? You cannot establish chazaka just by squatting. You can be squatting for 25 years. If you don't have a story to back up why you're squatting, right? I bought it from you, right? Or whatever that is, a fundamental story that works, your chazaka is irrelevant. And therefore Rava says, and therefore the Gemara challenges Rava's point here and says, if the Yisrael says, Rava seems to say that if the Yisrael adds a bit to his story and says that I bought it from the Goy and he told me he bought it from Reuven. Humphrey told me he bought it from Reuven. Doesn't matter. Exactly. That's what it says. So what? That doesn't mean anything. If the Goy said something he wouldn't be believed, and the Yisrael said something in the name of the Goy, he's going to be better. He's going to be stronger. His whole case, it doesn't help.
Fundamental premise is that the Goy cannot tell the truth.
No.
We don't believe.
No. Well, it's
Easy there.
Yes. Yeah. There isn't, like I said, like I mentioned before, the Meiri in a number of places in Avodah Zarah deals with this. Very famous Meiris, a number of places where he deals with this. He establishes the premise that a number of the halachos which the Gemara sets out in many different places, referring to an akum, not talking about Avodah Zarah. That's a different question about what's considered Avodah Zarah. That's a different question whether Christianity is Avodah Zarah. That's not talking about that, right? That is, that's a separate debate. But issues such as to do with trustworthiness and reliability, etc., Meiri has a very famous mahalach in this and says that fundamentally the reason why the Gemara sets up in a number of places the concept of Akum being untrustworthy in every respect and everything else is because of the pagan philosophy and ideology built around the Avodah Zarah, which was all based on a fundamentally immoral life. But, says the Meiri, those who may not be Jewish but are living Badarche Nimus, he says, Nimuse Hadosos, that's his phrase, Nimuse Hadatot, which means the manners on the moralities of religion. In other words, a religion which espouses moral, is a moral religion rather than an immoral. Do you understand? Avodah Zarah, paganism was fundamentally immoral religion, and therefore it's all anything goes. So the Meiri says that's different. It's something which where you have a religion which follows, which at least in its fundamental theology aspires to inspire people to live moral lives, which he says undoubtedly. Again, he's living in whatever it is, 13th, 14th century Europe, right? Undoubtedly, those amongst whom we live, effectively, that is the idea. And those aspects of how the Gemara characterizes the immorality of paganism, learn from Avodah Zarah, right? Avodah Zarah talks about how there's assumed to be Sheichev and Behemah and all these things. It was all part of the course, right? Go and study what ancient Rome was like. I mean, literally was, right, in every respect. Because that was what the pagan world was like. So it could be. That's why you have to be very careful. I'm not necessarily saying it's the stomach and Gazlonim Haim, which is what the premise is based on.
But are we saying?
Anyway, let's come back to Jeremy's question. So yes, we're assuming that Akum are Gazlonim. Okay, and you're going to be afraid to object because they're going to beat you up.
Are we assuming?
And therefore, there's no chazak. Assuming.
I'm assuming that they're more likely to be.
Yeah. It doesn't mean, it would be an interesting question whether that halacha, I don't think that halacha will change. The chazaka da fundamentally doesn't apply to a goy. That's a separate thing, right? Right. We're not saying, and I'm not suggesting otherwise. I'm not suggesting that chazaka does apply to Bibles. The takon of chazaka applies to Yisrael, but the fundamental reason why the Gemara says you can't escape this, the reason why the Gemara says there's no chazaka with a goy is because of the fact that you would be terrified to object, because they're like mafia, at least that in this respect, and that's why you have to be careful to make a distinction, I think. But anyway, part of a broader topic. Is that okay? Yeah, we'll see the Rosh Hashanah in a minute in more detail. Let's just finish the Gemara. Ela Omar Rava. So we've established what? You can't believe that the goy has no chazaka. Yisrael can't bought it from the goy, therefore has no chazaka either. And even if the Yisrael says, that the goy said to me that he bought it from Yisrael, it's not going to help. So what? He's not believed. So by saying he bought it from me, it's also not going to help, right? Yeah.
You could always say that.
Yeah, exactly. Ela Omar Rava, Rava says, when will the Yisrael be successful in his claim that he bought it from the goy? I Omar Yisrael, if the Yisrael says, Kame Didi Zovno Akum Minoch, that in front of me, the non-Jew bought it from you, the Zavno Nihali, and he sold it to me, Mehemon, then he's believed, right? Migoiti boy omale ano zvinto minoch. Since he could have said, I bought it from you. You understand that? Right? Yeah. Because he could have said, I bought it from you, that's a migoy. And therefore, he's believed to say that he bought it, that he saw the non-Jew buy it from the Yisrael. So this changes everything, because this is, you understand, this is a much much stronger position now, because now the Yisrael is now giving now we have a chazaka sheishim more time. We now have a chazaka with a claim. The chazaka is he's been there for 3 years. What is the claim? The claim is that I saw Humphrey, me Shimon, saw Humphrey buy it from Reuben. Are you going to tell me, maybe he's lying? Maybe he's lying. Who says? He's making it up. Just wants to get the land. It's an easy lie to make. No, because if he was lying, I'd say a better lie. Say, I bought it from you. If you're lying, I say an easier lie. Bought it from the Yisrael. Shimon cut the guy out of the story. Shimon could just say, I bought it from Reuben. Stuck with that. No. Shimon could say, I just bought it from Reuben.
I mean,
So what? Chazaka. No, it does matter. It does matter. But again, you have to understand that a person who has been in the land for 3 years, right, has chazaka. If he has a taina, if he has a claim, what could be the claim? The claim is I bought it from you. And if Reuven says, no, you didn't, it doesn't go like a Punch and Judy. Yes, I did. No, it doesn't happen like that. Why? Because Shimon says, you should have objected. You should have objected, right? You should have objected, right? That's what you should. That's a standard reason why Shimon is believed. Now again, you're going to tell me, okay, but here the whole point is that because there was a guy involved, I didn't want to object. I was scared, etc., all of that, right? But that falls away if I'm launching this incredible claim that I saw the guy buy it from you, because that gives me a believability. That is what a migoy is. If I was lying, I would have just said I bought it directly from you. So it must be that I'm not lying. And it's true that the guy did in fact buy it from you. No, you don't. No, you don't. Right, that's a migoy.
Who's the more common in this
Reuven. What do you mean? Someone who's still in the field. We know the field. We know the facts.
Yeah. So
Who's disputing?
how did this get to court?
Who's got the current?
Okay, so we'll see the Rashbam. The Rashbam will take us through this in very specific detail, the whole case from the beginning of the Gemora. Okay, so Rashbam is the last Rashbam on Lamed Hey on base, the bottom of the Amud, right? You'll see. He will answer all your questions, I think. Can you see that? The last one, the last sort of paragraph at the end, right? Soda, a field. That's what we're talking about, a field. Shakol Yodin, Shahoyas Shel Yisrael. Listen to the facts very carefully. That's a fact. Everyone knows it used to belong to Yisrael, right? Avi, can you see it? It's the bottom of, Lamed 10 base, right? Everyone knew this field belonged to Yisrael. Not up for debate. That's a fact. And we also know, second fact, right? Not to dispute, that there was a guy who was there and he 3 years or more in the field. The Chaim and the guy claims Shalot Cham Yisrael, that he bought it from the Yisrael, right? He bought it from Reuven. That's what the guy claimed. And then Yisrael went and he bought it from that Gentile. And then he ate and consumed produce on the property after the guy 3 years chazaka or more. Do you understand? Those are the facts. We know it belongs to Reuven. We know there was a guy who claims he bought it from Reuven, right, and was there for 3 years. And we also know that, and this is not, we know that the Yisrael then bought it from the guy. That's also a fact. Everyone knows that. And we also know he was there for 3 years. The Yisrael. It's not chazaka. This doesn't work. The owner of the land can come along and he can take it away from the hand of the Yisrael, right, the second Jew. The Yisrael lezel b'litzvan akum dezaven minei, and the Yisrael can then go and claim from the guy who he bought it from. He can claim his money back. So why is it that the Yisrael is that Shimon doesn't get to keep the land? Because it's his own fault. He's caused the loss to himself. He should never have bought Jewish land, Arad Yisrael, me'akum, from a goy, until he says to him very clearly, Havli shtar, give me the shtar, the shtar of sale, the zovantolam Yisrael, that you bought it from Yisrael. Right? So the Yisrael, Shimon, it's his own fault. He has messed himself up because he should have known that the only safe way of buying land from a guy who claims he bought it from Yisrael is to show me the shtar. Why? The din chazaka les leila akum, because the halacha is there is no din chazaka for an akum, for a non-Jew. Ulachol man, they changed the gears to something. V'lo kol man, or ulachol man da'osim echamosei, and therefore there's no chazaka for anyone who comes from the akum either. And why is there no chazaka with an akum? The stam akum gazlonim him, because they're assumed to be thieves. The Yisrael yori limchos, and therefore the Yisrael is afraid to object. The hilkach therefore lutiknu b'hem chazaka. They did not institute for them chazaka. Kedamrina lekaman b'shmaitin. As we say later on in our sugya, very important. Don't think we're being favoritism here, and this is anti akum, because the same thing can apply to a Jew. We're going to see later on in the Gemora, whether it's this year or another year. Hani de Beiresh Gulusa, the Beiresh Gulusa, they were what were known as the English and translated as the exilarchs, and their exilarchs were basically the officially in Babylon, in Bavel. They were the recognized heads of the Kehillah by the Gentile authorities. Yeah, a little bit. Not quite. A little bit cruel.
JLC.
Yeah, it's more the JLC. It's a little bit cruel. I'd say that it's interesting because I have a chavrusa that I had for 12 years with a former president of the United Synagogue. We've been chavrusas for years. So presently, what we're learning is actually preparing the shir, preparing Basra. So anyway, he employed the last chief rabbi. So I said that in some elements of the chief rabbi's role, I was learning the sugya with him. So some elements of that role is represented in the notion of Reish Galusa. In other words, they're representative to the community role, if that makes sense. So they're wider society. So it says the Reish Galusa lo machsiki, right? Hani the Reish Galusa lo machsiki, right? They cannot form chazaka. For this very reason, right? Shirem on ulim chois, because we're afraid to object. They cannot form chazaka. The Berish Galusa, that very important aristocratic Jewish family, can never establish chazaka. Why? Because we're certain. Who's going to object? Who's going to challenge them?
Just keep the star.
Pardon?
They need to know they need to.
Yeah, you got to keep the star. That's right. Yeah. It doesn't mean they can't buy land. They just got to hold on to the star. The Yisrael is there, and this Yisrael Habo Machmas Akum, who comes through the goy, Afal Pish Hechazik, even though he's got a chazaka, in Cheskoso Klum, his chazaka is worth nothing. Why? The chazaka she'eini motainoi, because it's a chazaka that has no claim. Shariuta eno akum mochrali. He claims. What's his claim? I bought it from this guy. Aval eini yodea heach bo l'idea ha'akum. He doesn't know how it came to the akum, that he had the ability to sell it. He doesn't know. The guy said to him, "I've got this land that I bought from Yisrael." Well, who says there's no shtar? You've got no idea. He doesn't know how it came to the akum. So it was his own fault for buying it. Make sense? Buyer beware, don't we say, right? It's his own fault for buying it. He should never have bought it unless the Akum could show a star. The Akum could not show a star, therefore he should not have bought it. If he did, he loses the land. He's going to lose out of pocket. Go back and fight the Akum in court, take him to court, and get your money back. He should never have sold to you. If he was stolen, you stolen goods. Follow the law of the land, whatever it is. You can take a guy to a non-Jewish court. You don't have to take him to Basin, right? And that's how it is. Get your money back. So you'll ask me how can he legitimately buy land? As follows: if the Yisrael claims, last 3 lines, and he says, he says that the goy gave me the star of sale, that he bought it from you, and I saw in that document that he bought it from you, then he's believed. The Domi, because it's similar to the case we just explained in the Gemora later on. It's a similar claim to someone saying, in front of me, the guy bought it from you. The Maskinon Lakamon that we conclude later on, he's believed. Right? Because since he could have said, I bought it from you and you ate it, and it was eaten, and I ate it for 3 years chazaka. So in other words, what we're saying, the Rosh Hashanah is just adding a little knechi. He's saying like this. He's saying the Gemora is going to say in a minute that can the Yisrael establish ownership? He's there for 3 years chazaka, and has a chazaka sheyishim or taina. What is a chazaka sheyishim or taina? What is a good claim? A good claim would be, as we see in the Gemara later on, that he says, I saw the goy buy it from you, the Yisrael. Why is that a good claim? Maybe he's making it up. The answer is because it's a migo. Because there's a migo, and the migo makes it a good claim. What is the migo? The migo is, if I was lying, I would have said I bought it from you straight away. And therefore, there's a degree of believability to what I'm saying. My story has to have believability to it. In a normal case, I can just say I bought it from you, and I've been there for 3 years. You should have objected. But here you don't have that, because here the ability to object is taken away. So you need something stronger than that. You need 3 years chazaka and a story which gives proof to your to your chazaka. You understand? You need something stronger, and that is created by a migo. The migo shows that I'm telling the truth, right? Migo is like a proof. There's a whole discussion. We've seen bits and pieces of this, I think. What is a migo? What does it mean? What does it do? What does it do? What is a migo? Migo is really, it's a raya, it's a proof, right? Since if I was lying, I would have said a better lie. So it must be I'm telling the truth. It's not that it's a knockout thing. We saw Migo Mokamedim. It's not as strong as witnesses. It's not like it can, a Migo is like this some magic spell. It's not a spell. No, I'm saying you've got to be careful with it. But we've learned that, right? You can't come along and say, I've got a Migo. Migo could have said this and say this. Therefore, you forget your aid. Of course not, right? It's all balanced. Yes, you understand. But a Migo does give a degree of respectability and believability to what, and credibility to what I'm saying. Yeah, it does, right? It does, right? Now the Rashbam adds here another type of migo, or at least another similar case, and that is that if he says that I've been here for 3 years, that's chazaka, and we know he's been here because he's got proof he's been there for 3 years, and he says that the akum I bought from, the guy I bought the land from, showed me the shtar mechira. And in that star, it says that he bought it from you. So that's also a good migo. Why? What's the migo? Yeah, once again, he's saying something which is, I'll prove to you that I'm telling the truth because I'm putting myself out on the line to make this claim that he showed me, he gave me a shtar mechira. Right? I saw the documentation, and the documentation clearly said that he bought it from you. And therefore, Migai could have said, I bought it from you directly. You believe me when I say that this guy bought it from you because I saw that was the case. No, it makes sense?
He paid him or something to prove that that's the case.
Again, so this is where you got to get your head around, right? logically, you look at these cases and you think, there's no edus. Like, how on earth? Who says it's yours? But again, chazaka is a takanas chachomim. The chachomim instituted it because otherwise people would not be able to hold on to their land, right? Because if you buy land, you don't keep documents longer than 3 years. You lose documents, right? And therefore, Chazal made a takana, as we know, after 3 years, you have assumed ownership. The balance of things switches. However, they put safeguards. Otherwise, anyone can do that. You can't just squat in someone's land. I can't live in your house 3 years because you want to around the world cruise 4 times around, and then you come back and you find that there's no one, this guy in your house. Why are you here? Because I found it. No, that's not good enough. You have to have a taina. Your taina has to be, your claim has to be a claim that is a respectable and sensible and will effectively, as you said, lend credibility or make the story make sense. Now, normally that could be as simple as I bought it from you. I bought it from you. Now there's no Adim. It doesn't matter because I've been there 3 years. So it's assumed to be mine if I have a story that makes sense. What's the story? The story is I bought it from you. But here, if I just say I got it from a goy, well, that doesn't help because he's got no chazaka, so you're stronger than him. But if you sell a story which gives you, it's not that you're relying on the guy anymore. The migoy means that you're relying on yourself. Because I could have, if I was lying, I would have said I bought it straight from you, and Based would have given it to me, no questions asked. And that's why you get the believability. Yeah, that's why you're believed, right? Because of your chazaka works. Now the Rashbam says, last bit at the end of Rashbam, v'davka bo machmas aklum. Only if he comes from a goy. Te'ilu bo machmas Yisrael. If he comes through Yisrael, he bought from Yisrael, then the rules are different. Even though the person who was living in it only lived in it for 1 day, the person who sold it to you, and this one had a chazaka for 3 years, his chazaka is a chazaka. Someone who was living in this attic or whatever it was for 4 years. We learned that case. We saw it, even though it's ahead. We referenced it once upon a time in the past. But basically, the Rasham is just adding here, almost in brackets. This is very specific to a story where it's Yisrael, Akum Yisrael. If it's Yisrael, 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 so I've been there 3 years, and I claim that I bought it from. So Reuven used to own some land, okay? Then the story goes that Shimon had it, and then Levi had it. Levi's there for 3 years. It's good enough if Levi can prove, right, that the person he sold it to, the middleman, the person who sold it to him was only there for 1 day. That's enough. That's enough of a claim. That's enough. That's enough of a claim to give you ownership. All right? Levi, yeah, to give Levi ownership. That's enough, right? If he can prove that person lived in it for 1 day, then that's enough. And the Gemora explains, I think, why that is. He says, Rashbam says, it makes his, again, it strengthens his words by the fact that he lived in it for 1 day. 1 second. He has to have Adim. If he has Adim that the guy lived in it for 1 day, okay, then that's enough. So he's not on just his speech. No, he has to have something more than that. But in this case, he's got to have Adim. In this case, no. Well, a star would be good, but we don't have a star. That's the point. All these cases, we don't have a star. If we had a star, it would be great. Yeah. So again, it's a bit confusing. It's a bit confusing, and it's because it's a different sugya. But really, the point is that when it comes to someone who is a lokeach, yeah. If I show you the Rashbam, you'll remember it. Have a look at it quickly. You can. The Rashbam is Memalef on the base. It does help to look at it a little bit. The story. We see the Gemara first. It's halfway down on Memalef on the base. Something. Well, it was maybe a bit related to that.
So Mem Aleph on the base.
Yeah, Mem Aleph on the base, about halfway down. There's the last word of the line, Hahu. Yeah. Hahu Gavra. See that?
Yeah.
Hahu Gavra, there was a certain man The door Bekashta Elisa Arba Shane. He lived in a Bekashta is the name of a place, and Elisa was in an attic upstairs, upper story. Arba Shane. He was there for 4 years. Also, Mori de Bese, the owner of the house came. Ashkeche found him. Amalei said to him, "My boy is behind Besa. What are you doing in this house? It's my house." Amalei said to him, "Palnia Zavinta. I bought it from so and so. Palnia is Ploni. Yeah, I bought it from so and so. The Zovna Minoch, who bought it from you."
Yeah.
There was a middleman, Levi. I bought it from Reuven Shimon. No, Reuven Shimon Levi. Levi says, "I bought it from Shimon," and he says he bought it from you. Also, came in front of Rabbi Chia Malay. Rabbi Chia said, "Yeslach Sadi. If you have witnesses, the Dorbo Iu, the Zavantomine, that this guy you bought it from, or you claim to have bought it from, lived in it, Vafilu Chad Yoma, even just one day, Okimna La Biyodach. If you can prove that Shimon lived in it only for one day, that's all, then we will give it to you. Vilo lo, and if not, not. And look at the Rashbam, look at this one.
Can't you understand and say I only lent it for a week?
The owner? No, because he's got chazaka of 3 years. That's the point. Because he's got chazaka of 3 years, all he needs, the Levi has a chazaka of 3 years. That's the point. So all he needs to strengthen his claim is something else. To help, look at the Rashbam. The Rashbam says afilu chad yoma. The Rashbam is a third of the way down. To strengthen your words. It's a third of the way down, as in like nearly before, just before it gets to shortly before it gets to the wide line. To strengthen your words, to give truth to your words. And we'll give it to you. Since you've got a chazaka of 3 years, and you will no longer need to bring Eidim that he bought it from the owner, the person who bought it, who sold it to you. You won't have to bring Eidim that Shimon bought it from Reuven. Why now? How can that be? Why not? There's no Eidim. It's only got what Eidim? He lived in it for one day. Like you said, like Avi said, it could have been anything. He could have lent it to him. He could have done all sorts of things. The answer is we based in step in to help a Yerush, a person who inherits, or a buyer. Anyone who comes from a perspective of inheritance or buying something, he doesn't need a proper claim, a proof. All he needs is a proof that the seller lived in it for one day. Okay, it's part of the Takonas Chazal to help someone, and it fits with those who learn the whole of Chazaka like this, right? That ultimately, people who are Yerush or a Lekech are in a weak position. They're in a fundamentally weak position. Someone can always challenge them because it is known that they haven't always owned it. So you're always in a weak position because everyone knows you didn't always own it. There's always a little question mark. Did you really buy it? Did you steal it? And therefore, we don't need a 280. We only need. Oh, sorry, yes, we do need 280. Yeah, of course, yeah, 100%. Always 280. Yeah, almost. Yeah, 280. Absolutely, 280. Yeah. But the point is that the Rashbam only has to sit in brackets here because this is a very specific case, and there's a major difference between a Yisrael and an Akum. If the middleman is a Yisrael, if you Levi, have Eidim, right, that Shimon was there for one day, that's enough. That's enough of a taina, because based on what I'll come along and say, right, that's good enough for us. Because turn in we give support, right? We create a story. You can't create a story out of nothing. You need to do something to make your words give truth to your words. If you can't prove the middleman was there at all, then obviously we can just say you're talking nonsense, making it up. That doesn't help, right? However, all of this doesn't work with a guy. Why? Because with a guy, there's no chazaka at all. And therefore, unless you can stand on your own 2 legs by having a good claim, a claim which could exist independent of the akum, like I saw that he bought it from you, which because of the miga, you could have just said, if you were lying, you could have said, I bought it directly from the shop. You could have cut him out altogether. Yeah, so with that, that's what you need if the middleman is an akum. Look at the Rashbam top of the next Omar. To me, the guy said that he bought it from you, then he's believed. Because he thought to claim in this way, so too he could have claimed, I bought it from you. And he consumed it for 3 years. He could have claimed, right? I bought it from you. And he believed. Why would he be lying? And he's telling the truth. And essentially, Rasham is explaining the Hava Amina of Rava before Rava changes his mind. The Hava Amina was of Rava, at least that way we understood the Rava at the beginning, that the fact the person thought to claim that the guy said to me, he bought it from you. So he could have claimed, I bought it directly from you, right? And I've used it for 3 years. And he'd be believed, right? And therefore we say, why should he be lying? He could have just said, I bought it directly, and therefore he's telling the truth. But the Gemora challenged that. The Gemora says, right? Is there anything that a guy would say and he's not believed? And because you say that he's told you that, because he said he told you that, therefore you'll believe. Doesn't make any sense. You're no stronger than, better. You're not in a better position than the guy, right? Here is one, it's a chazaka which has no claim. Even if his claim is true. That the guy said to him, the Misrael Zavno, and let's say that's true, that the guy said to me, he bought it from the Israel. The words of the Akum are nothing without a star. So the fact that let's say it's true. You're saying that the guy told me he bought it from Reuven. Okay, maybe we believe you. So what? Without a star, that's not right. Even if he did say that to you, that doesn't help you, right? That doesn't help you, and therefore that doesn't work. And the only thing that works is if you make a claim, which is next Rashbam, Kamoi Didi, that in front of me the guy bought it from the Israel. Koloma means to say, Shani Yodea Babiro, I know clearly, explicitly. Yeah. That's a chazaka which has a taina with it. And the reason why it's a chazaka sheishim taina is because it has a proper migo. Because it has a migo. What's the migo? The migo is I could have just said I bought it straight from you. Right? It's a taina of certainty. Do you understand the difference between what changes between the first suggestion of what Robert says and afterwards? Do you understand the difference? Doing all shout at once.
One was hearsay, one was direct experience.
And therefore what? What's the key point?
Second one's got a middle.
Yeah, but why? First one also has a migo.
It's got time.
The first one would seem would also have a migo, because the migo would be migo. I could have said, I could have said I bought it from you.
What was the first one?
The guy said to me that he bought it from you. He told me he bought it from you.
No, but you didn't see it.
No, I didn't say anything. The guy said to me he bought it from you. So why can't you say the same thing? Migo, I could have said I bought it from you and I wouldn't believe. So believe me when I say that the guy told me he bought it from you. That he bought it from you. Again, if I stood up and said, I bought it from you and I've been here for 3 years, no questions asked. Case is thrown out of court. Keep it. Clear? Yes, agree with that? That's called a chazaka sheish matayna. All I need to do is get up in Beis Din and say, I bought it from you. I've been here for 3 years, I keep it. So why can't we say the same migo? What did I say? I said that the guy told me he bought it from you. So believe me, because I could have just said, if I was lying, I would have just said I bought it directly from you. So what's the difference? Why does it add something when I say he bought it happened, the sale happened in front of me? Sorry to challenge. But do you understand? What's the difference?
Because in the first case, we say the guy is not believed. There's no chazaka. So you as the Jew then
Right. That's it.
So you're giving aiders.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that is the point. That is the point. You are undermining the possibility of any migo being created by the very words that you say. You can't say, Miga, I could, if I was lying, I could have done better. But you said something. What you said means that you're the same as, you're no better than the guy. And he's not believed, so therefore neither are you. That was just exactly what you're saying. I'm just repeating what you're saying. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you can't come along and start creating a Miga. Maybe I could have said something better, but you said something which is meaningless, which doesn't give you any strength. And therefore you don't go anywhere with it. This is that's I think the difference. Yeah.
So how does it help in the second case where you've seen it happen in front of you?
What do you mean?
That does work.
Well, the second case where what? Yeah, no. If it was in front of you, so then that's no, because that's totally different. Because now that I'm saying that I saw him buy it, you're not reliant upon the akum.
Oh, no, it's work. It's
yeah. The first way around, I don't know anything. He told me something. Well, so okay, he told you something. Great. So what? We don't believe him, then we don't believe you. Yeah. Whereas if I say that I saw the transaction, so we got to think to ourselves, hold on, okay, but maybe you're lying. Okay, maybe I'm lying. So if I was lying, I'd say I better lie. We're not interested now in the coin. It's all about you. You maybe you're lying. Okay, if you're lying, I would say better lie. That's the point. Yisrael but you're not a Yisrael habor machmas akum in the second case. You're not coming, your strength is not derived from the position of the goy.
It just looks a little bit like self-aidus, though, doesn't it? I saw it myself.
Yeah.
It is.
Which is,
of course,
which is why a migoy.
In the context of migoy,
exactly, which is why a migoy. I'm just trying to. We definitely saw this. Which is why a migoy is. Yeah, which is why. 1 second. Which is why there are a number of reasons why. I'm just trying to remember we saw this inside. Migoy does not work when it goes against Adim. It doesn't work lahotzi momon. You can't say migoy lahotzi. You can't say a migoy just to get money from someone else. You can only say a migoy to keep the status quo. It's a proof. That's all it is. It's a proof. It's something which helps substantiate your claim. It's not a conclusive thing. It's not like it's a definitive thing. Therefore you own it. You're here for 3 years. You've got your chazaka, right? But you need a taina with it, and that's what the migoy is helping with. I'm simplifying it, but that's basically the idea. Yeah.
Reinstate chazaka.
Effective? No. Well, it gives the chazaka strength.
Chazaka's gone. It's gone.
No, you got your own chazaka. You did 3 years as well. Remember, you both did 3 years. You have your own chazaka.
Yeah, but if you bought it for the guy you didn't say you saw it. Then
No. That's not, because then then all you are is coming mikoyach the god.
You saw the transaction with a non-Jew, gives you a chazaka again. You wouldn't have had otherwise. It's not that. Chazal, the takana of Chazal was a chazaka sheishim or taina works, right? That was the takana. The takana was, again, going with the Ketzos and others that we've seen, that takana was that buyers need protection. Buyers need protection. And therefore, even though really you should say, Chazkas Mori Kama, really you should say, I've always owned it. Everyone's known I've always owned it. And that's not no one's disputing that. And therefore, how can this squatter get ownership? The answer is because people don't keep their documents for longer than 3 years. Therefore, Chazal had to make some institution, some takana, which gives people security when they buy things. But the takana they made was that you can have, if you've been for 3 years without error, without anyone getting up and saying it's theirs, we assume it's yours. If you have a taina, you have a claim. Now, that is the question we are really assessing in this sugya. What is a claim? Is a claim something which is, a claim is not like something ridiculous. It has to be something which makes sense. And normally, that's simple. Claim can be, I bought it from you, right? But in a case where you're saying I bought it from a goy, then by definition it doesn't help, because the goy got no chazaka. So how do you? Well, you haven't got a proper claim. Whereas if you say that I saw that the goy bought it from you, now I've got a proper claim. There's a goy involved. So what? I don't need him. I don't need that. That goes on relevant. I saw him buy it from you, and if I was lying, I would have just said I would have said directly I bought it from you. So therefore, your taina is good.
That's the point, right? Yeah, that's how it is. Right. We have time just for another few more lines, which is actually a sugya we've seen before. V'omar Rav Yehuda, we've done this before. V'omar Rav Yehuda says, because it came up earlier in the Gemora. Rav Yehuda says, "Hi man, do not get magla v'tuvlaya." A person who takes hold of I think it's a scythe, and a tuvla. Tuvla is like something axe or something, no? Oh no, a rope. V'omar, he says, "Ezel igzera ledikla de palmia." I will go and chop down the palm tree of so and so, the zavinte mine, that I bought it from him. Mehemon, he's believed. He's believed. Why? Why should he be believed? He's off to chop down the palm tree, and he says, I bought it from so and so, because my time, aloy chotzif finish, the migzadikla delav delay. A person will not have the chutzpah to go and chop down a palm tree that doesn't belong to him. Now, the Rashbam just says, Kvar Pirishis Lo Le'el. Rashbam says, I've already explained this above, and I don't need to explain it again. The Rashbam says, where the Rashbam explained this is on the Gimel on the base. And the Rashbam there explains that, and we can just quickly see those Rashbams. We did it, it's good Chazara. Lam Gimel on base, the bottom of the Amud. Yeah? So there the Rashbam explains what's going on here. You understand the story? A person says, he makes a public statement. Rashbam says he takes Kli Godre Tmorim. It's about 10 lines up from the end of the Omid. He takes these implements which are used to chop down dates. Hamagal Ligdar, the scythe is to cut down. The Tuvilo is a chevel, alos, the dekel, merov gofo, a rope to climb up the tree. The Yeshmorj and Chovla is some say is a basket to accept the fruit. V'omar b'fonenu, he says in front of us, he makes a big public statement. He says, Ezel the Igdre Ladikna to Palnik, Elkada Paris, I'm going to go and pick the fruit from this tree. Meheman is believed. It's an astonishing thing. Based on allow him to go off and chop down the fruit without edim, without a star. Why? Since critically, because we haven't had any rejection. The owners have not come along and objected. No one's stopping him. No one's coming along before he picks them and saying, don't do that. It's my fruit tree.
Is it published?
It doesn't seem to need to be published, but it's kind of public knowledge. He says in front of us, and he's off down the road, and everyone, and they see him. We don't stop him because no one's objected. If his friend comes along and says this never existed, you never had a right, I never sold you these fruits, okay? Because remember, that's what he's claiming. He's saying you sold me the fruit, right? Let's say someone else comes along afterwards and says that never happened. Never happened. I never sold you the fruit. So that after he's picked the fruit, the tree, less olei ala shvuas hases. All he has to do is make a shvua drabonon, a special shvua drabonon. Okay, and that's how it is. That's how it is. They impose that type of shvua, but no more. But if before he picks it down, also more the dikla, the owner of the palm tree runs along and says, this was never happened. I never sold it to him. Lo meheman malakate, the person who picks it is not believed. Ad demaisi raya, until he brings a proof. Okay? V'davka mishitom mitchila peres yuradati. Ne'eman, he's only believed when he says at the beginning, I went down for the fruit, masha achal kvar. Then he's believed that which is already eaten. Let's say first off he says, I bought it from you. And then he changes his claim and says, actually, you just gave me the right to eat the fruit. He's contradicting what he said earlier. Then he doesn't not allowed to make a claim and reclaim. You can't revise your claim. You're not allowed to revise your claim. You can't change your claim, right? So the scenario is very specific. It's very specific, right? If a person goes along and says publicly, or at least in front of us, it says, based in or whatever, and says, I am going to chop down the fruit which belongs to me, then effectively which has been sold to me, the halacha is that he is we believe him, or at least he can go ahead and do it. We let him do it. If someone else comes along afterwards and says that never happened, he's got to make a shvua midrabanon. We call that a shvua sases. But if, let's say, before he chops down the tree, call me now 1 second. Can't remember offhand. I don't know offhand. Yeah. Anyway, Amakami deligdere, okay, but it's a shmod rabban. Amakami deligdere, if before he chops it down, also mori de dikla, the owner of the palm tree comes along and he says that never happened. So then the person who's picking it has to bring a proof. So this whole mechanism only works if no one objects before he actually put, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty brazen thing to come to base.
That's the point. That's the believability. No one would do that. They wouldn't have the chutzpah to do that. That itself gives him believability, right? That's the end of that little sugya. So as I said, Mitzvah Hashem, the next year really will be in 3 weeks' time. I'm away next week with Chasna, and then the week after is Purim, and then we will resume the Ezra Hashem after that. Maybe Purim. Okay. Fine. Thanks for coming. Have a good evening. Okay.